Hey, little T.
Hey, Mr. B, how are you doing, sir?
Welcome back. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's a lovely day.
It's a lovely
sunny
day
outside.
to be outside, and we're
Actually got
stuck
my jacket
inside.
off.
You got your jacket off.
I know.
I don't have my normal jacket on today. I got my Canada. I got it from a friend. It's my hoodie.
It's your hoodie.
I'm in the hood.
Surely it's too hot for a hoodie, but
But it's nice and thin. And
okay.
I might take it off, just not
Okay.
right now, because we're doing this and so I can't really multitask right now. I'm just sit here and talk.
Anyway, but that's okay.
Ouch.
What? Oh,
that's deep, man.
that's okay. I can't
That
multitask.
was horrible. I feel bad about that, but you making that comment because I'm gonna have to get you back. No, yeah, no, it's pretty cool, man. It's pretty good. I'm enjoying this weather. Actually, it's normally not zipped up, so I'll tell you what, I'll unzip it. There we go. I feel a little less formal.
Do you know what?
How can you be
just
formal in a
realised?
hoodie? What?
We literally are just talking about the weather.
Yeah, so what?
Super boring. Gosh.
Well, no, we were going to talk about other stuff too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we just we're preempting. But yeah, so you said today you want to talk about censorship.
Oh yes.
Censorship.
A lovely topic.
And what I've decided to do now is like we'll create a series, because I have people asking me like, what are these? What do you talk about? Like, what is the plan for the show?
What's the point?
What's your point? And I was like, I just want to talk about stuff that people generally don't want to. They're thinking about it, but they're thinking about it, but they don't talk about it. The things you wish you could say and not worry about any kind of repercussions. So I'm taking the mantle. I'm
Okay.
I'm taking the hit for people,
Okay.
Yeah,
Are
there
you
we go.
taking me along for
So,
the ride?
yeah, you're along for the
I'm
ride.
going to be like your
Yippee-ki-yay.
little.
My little T.
Your little
But so I figured the best way to describe the show is we're going to talk about the elephant in the room. And no, there's no physical elephant in the room that I'm aware of anyway. I didn't see one. It's kind of small. They probably wouldn't fit me
I
anyway.
haven't been hunting yet today.
No, not hunting.
Just-
Today. Well, that's good. So every other day you're hunting.
Every other day.
It's too nice today to go hunting. But yeah, so we
I have never shot anything in my life before.
Really?
Just letting you know. Yeah. Anyway.
I have. I don't anymore.
Okay.
I enjoy shooting, but I don't enjoy shooting
Things.
animals.
Okay.
Anyway, but yeah, so pretty much elephant in the room is because someone said to me, it's like the elephant in the room, and I was like, it's a nice catchphrase. I think I'm going to use that. So with their permission, not that I needed their permission, but there we go. Yeah,
Can it be a pink elephant in the room?
doesn't matter.
Cool.
It's an elephant. We're talking about the
I like
elephant in
it.
the room.
Okay.
Everybody should know that expression, and that's what we're going to cover. So today we're going to look at censorship. And I'm sure we're going to talk about other stuff as well as we go along. But, I mean, other things could pop up as we go. This is just how the show rolls, man.
Yeah.
Are
we bringing up that other thing?
What about iTunes? I guess not. Oh, wait, I just did.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was a bit of a bummer. So we
Yeah.
put one out. Spotify, it was on perfectly. And it was great. And they didn't have a problem putting it up. But for some reason, iTunes had an issue with our last program. Which I didn't think was bad at all. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it.
I think it's because we're South Africans.
Yeah,
I think
true.
we just don't.
and
like...
that's another thing. I think one of us is going to have to pull out an accent because I mean your last
There we
friend,
go.
it was like saying that we both sound like you can't
exactly
tell the
the
difference.
same.
So
But then
thought-
if I try and do that as well,
no, you sound terrible. So
I
I'm just
can't
gonna-
do accents.
So I'll stick to it. So I actually thought I would talk more like this, but. I figured. Well, I actually did. I seriously thought that I just kick in like an Aussie accent the whole show, so that way people can tell the difference between us. Your friend can be like, "Oh, that's Tyrone, and that's the other guy."
I could try and sound a little bit lower.
No, but now you just sound like you're dull. So it's like right. So censorship.
Censorship. Oh, yes.
What made you?
What made me think of that?
Yeah, what made you think of that?
Loads. Well, first of all, the reason we got blocked.
Well, I
that-
guess
that
the old
made me think
iTunes thing
about it,
didn't help.
Yeah, but
No.
there seems to be a little bit of a running theme going around kind of internationally at the moment about censorship. Yeah. I mean, loads of people are being kicked off of Facebook, off YouTube, of all sorts of
Like who?
places.
Who's getting kicked off Facebook?
Well, I was kind of trying to avoid
Name dropping.
name dropping, but
I
I mean,
don't know if we can drop names.
no, well, anyway,
It
but
doesn't matter. Anyway, are
but
they famous people?
It mainly seems to be from a certain political standing.
So it's a political issue. So
Usually, yeah. It's
Okay.
usually like conservatives who are getting blocked, sort of
Ah,
thing.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but Anyway, so I was just thinking about that, and
welcome to the new world.
The new world where we don't discuss anything.
Where we have free speech, but we're not allowed to say anything.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking it's kind of apt for what we want to do in terms of talking about things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and how important it is to discuss different opinions and that sort of thing. Anyway, so
I'm there like a bear, man.
You're there like a bear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't know if anyone else knows that expression, but there we go. We're talking about the elephant in the room, but I'm there like a bear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, way too many metaphors going on. Anyway, is that even a real saying?
What, there like a bear?
Is that a metaphor of some kind?
Yeah, of course it is. You've never heard that expression?
Never.
Oh, well,
is it because bears give bear
hugs?
And
what about like you've heard the expression train smash?
Yeah.
Yeah, that over here doesn't seem to... When we say over here, we're talking about Ireland, because we're based in Ireland at the moment.
Yeah.
And so that's what we say here.
Okay.
But anyway.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was just thinking about how important it is to discuss things, and I kind of take a little bit back home. I was chatting to somebody back in South Africa.
Okay, yeah.
And just how, speaking with my mom, she would basically have said, she said to me that with what was going on in apartheid, she was completely oblivious because of where she was situated and how media kind of covered up things.
So like a media blackout kind of thing.
Yeah, you didn't really hear what was going on, and any like artists and stuff that were challenging like the regime, as it were.
Okay.
That stuff got blocked as well, and so everything that was kind of happening from a media perspective was happening on the outside and not on the inside.
Okay.
And just how that affects the way that a lot of people feel like obviously there was injustice done.
Yeah.
But then they feel that people who they feel are responsible don't take any responsibility.
Well, that's always the case. And then usually the case, the people that are supposed to take responsibility for it end up passing the buck. It's always somebody else's fault. It is. It's always the case. Like, oh, I didn't do it. Oh, I didn't do it either. Or the one that I really don't like is like, it's not part of my job description, or it wasn't my responsibility. Well, then whose is it? Do you know what I mean? Anyway.
But yeah, so like I think the disconnect between at least people in South Africa in that regards is how are people supposed to take responsibility for something that they're completely ignorant to if they didn't even know what was going on, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean?
But yeah, I get you.
Not saying that I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but I'm just saying like in terms of
from the other side of that, people will look at that expression and go, well, you can't feign ignorance about everything. Ignorance isn't bliss in this case.
Which is why we're talking about things.
Yeah.
Is that how do you move forward from that?
Yeah.
You have to discuss things.
Yeah.
There has to be
But in the world of PC and you can't talk about this, it makes it a little difficult.
Exactly. So I don't know. And in terms of like apartheid was obviously a terrible thing. It affected people in real ways. And so like if we're not able to talk about that and how it's impacted people and hurt people and that sort of thing, then you've got this emotional turmoil inside that you can't discuss.
Yeah.
And so it's
and everybody knows it's way better when it's bottled up inside.
Of course, and then an explosion happens and then people go crazy. And that's the whole problem with censorship is that you could actually deal with issues way before if you're able to talk through things. And that's
like a medical condition, if you
just put a plaster over it if you get stabbed. That's the way to deal with it.
I'm thinking from no man, what I meant from a medical put a plaster over it if I get stabbed.
Yeah, that's right. Pretend it's not there.
It's just a tiny one. It's a tiny scratch. Yeah. Just put the plaster on. But I was saying from a medical point of view in the sense of like a lot of things can be like medical issues could be prevented if you looked after yourself, or if you had like your checkups and all this kind of stuff, and had your of course on the other hand you go to the doctor that they tend to find everything wrong with you, but that kind of thing. So obviously being proactive and making sure that so you don't, like, if you're about to, you feel like a cold coming on and you do nothing about it. Yeah. And then suddenly, this cold is like turns into full blown like in the flu or something, and you're like, oh, I don't get so sick, and you're like, well, did you take any vitamins, or did you eat your healthy foods? Get vitamin C, stuff like that.
Are you doing exercise? Do you
exactly
go outside?
That kind of stuff. So you wait until it's like really bad. So the same thing there, it's stuff that could be prevented.
Yeah. So that's the whole problem with this PC culture. Is just you can't actually talk through things
because you're going to offend somebody.
Offense is glorified. It's more important to be offended.
Glorified for them. Offense is offensive to me. But nonetheless, what do I know?
Oh, anyway. So I do you know? Are we allowed to drop names?
Well, it depends.
In a reference.
Well, who's
okay? So there's this dude. He's a psychotherapist kind of dude. He's pretty famous at the moment. He's been around talking about things and whatever. And one of the things he talks about is
drop a name.
Oh, Jordan Peterson.
There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah. Anyway, one of the things
he's an Canadian
dude. Yeah. Anyway, one of the things he talks about is sacrifice. He's like, I know. Hold on. Bear with me.
Not from the biblical proportions.
Well, he actually was talking about it in that sense. But hold on. Just hold on.
How'd this go from censorship?
I'm getting there.
We're now talking about sacrifice, people.
No, but one of the things he talks about is like how kind of today it's more about getting what you want now than being willing to sacrifice something for a better future.
That's the instant gratification generation.
Exactly. And so it's more important to be gratified now. And where I'm coming from a censorship perspective is, I guess, on the one end, you've got people who are offended.
Yeah.
But then you've also got people who are afraid to offend. And I've been in that boat occasionally.
And so nothing gets done because no one talks, there's no conflict resolution.
Exactly. So we all go about our own business and never talk to each other, and both sides are unhappy.
And when we do talk to each other, it's all surface stuff. How's the weather today? You're looking lovely.
Exactly.
That's nice.
Exactly.
How's the new puppy? It means I'm underneath all that, which is another. It could be another reason for depression and anxiety and all kind. Yeah, depression, anxiety, all that kind of stuff, because people aren't dealing. Everything gets bottled up inside, and so the stuff comes out.
Yeah.
So, in other ways.
Yeah. So basically, it comes from like a responsibility perspective that when you, inverted commas, sacrifice your comfort for a better future. So, when we're discussing these topics, the whole point is that we actually care about the next generation or our own generation. That we're discussing these things so that we can work through issues and
getting it out in the open, so we can deal with it.
Getting it out in the open, yeah. Instead of just secretly hating each other for no reason. Not that I hate anybody,
secretly hating each other. Well, now I know how you feel. Little T will not be joining us next week for the. Okay, well that's true. That's true. And now, okay, you've said this, and how would that feed into censorship as we know it today in terms of media and otherwise?
Well, I think partly is, I guess various things. From a governmental perspective, I think we need to push for medias to kind of clarify whether they're publishers or platforms. So like from a legal perspective, they're different in terms of a publisher has editorial rights, whereas a platform doesn't. So it kind of brings a bit more clarity where, if Facebook or whoever decide that they're publishers, then that's perfectly fine. They can censor whoever they want.
Yeah, okay.
And so then at least you have expectations.
Then who would be a platform?
A platform, at the moment, Facebook would say that they are a platform.
Okay.
But they have editorial.
A social networking platform, not a social networking publisher.
Exactly.
Okay.
So they seem to be blurring the lines when they ban somebody.
Yeah, because that goes from platform to publisher, because they're saying who can and can't say what and what they can't and can and can't and all that kind of stuff. They can't say.
Yeah, so a good
very confusing, but there we go.
A good example would be your phone network. You know, they are a platform because they might be having they are providing network service for the drug dealers who communicate with each other.
But they're not. They're not banning or stopping anybody from the type of communication that's happening.
Exactly. So anyway,
I like that.
So I think that from a government perspective, I would say that's one way, and then just from a social perspective of being able to have interactions with people and discuss things and maybe provide meaningful discussions as a community. Can you imagine in a community center bringing to people from different faiths, backgrounds, cultures, and actually discussing things and trying to work together to clarify who believes what and why and that sort of thing. And when you know where somebody's coming from, it's easier to understand them, even if you disagree with them. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, because, just understanding something is not accepting something. It's just that you understand. Because I think a lot of people tend to worry about the fact that if they are allowing something, like something to be said or something to be done, in a way that's them accepting it and going along for the ride kind of thing. And I think that's what a lot of people worry about as well.
Well, you can easily...
When essentially it's not, as you just said, like just by talking about it and by allowing a person to communicate how they feel, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, all that kind of stuff. You're understanding where they're coming from, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're A, accepting it, or B, condoning it.
Yeah.
You're just understanding it, which then helps you to better communicate with each other as well.
Yeah.
Because if you both know where you're coming from in terms of whether it's background, religion, social economic stuff, all that kind of thing, culture, etc., then you can work together better because you know whether you've got context.
Exactly.
Context from the other person. Person's got context from your side and their side, and so you can work together. But that by no means says, but with that happening, people have to understand that just because you understand the context and you understand where the person's coming from and you're working together, whether it's in a company or whatever the case might be, that doesn't mean that you're saying it's okay with what they believe or what they're doing. You're not condoning it. You understand it because it's where they come from.
Yeah.
But you might not agree with it.
Yeah. There's something that kind of annoys me, and I think I see...
So it just kind of annoys you?
Yeah, from a political perspective, I see everybody doing it on whatever side, if there's a side.
Okay.
But it's this whole thing of associated by... what's it called? What's it when you're with somebody...
Oh, guilty by association.
Guilty by association.
Yeah.
And I think it's completely unhelpful when it's like, I see you were in a picture with this guy this guy's a terrible guy and that sort of thing. Okay. But if you're a mediator, if your whole point of, especially from a governmental perspective, if you're a politician where you're trying to bridge the gap and connect with people and find common ground and that sort of thing and try to make connections that way, you are going to interact with people that you don't agree with.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, if that's your job, yes.
Yeah, but the thing is even if it's not your job, if you're trying to connect, if you're trying to understand somebody, you can't understand them if you're not going to be in their presence.
So
you're not going to... If I want to get to know you and why you believe what you believe,
yes,
it's very hard for me to do that if I have no interaction with you.
No, fair enough. I get that. But, okay, and so you're saying purely from a research perspective then, not necessarily that you're buddies.
No, of course, yeah.
Because, I mean, that goes back to that other expression, which is a topic I actually want to talk about as well at some stage. Show me your friends and I'll show you show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
Yeah, well, that's a completely different thing. That's a friend. That's not necessarily.
So this is literally
even
just
a colleague.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Just because you work with somebody
doesn't mean that you because it could be an office photo or something.
Whatever.
Like that.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, guilty by association. Yeah, no, a lot of that stuff. Okay, fair enough. So censorship. I mean, if you look at it as well, you were talking about South Africa earlier about how apartheid and stuff, and there was a lot of media blackout. I mean, the same thing's happening now with these stuff that's happening on the farms. A lot of stuff's not being shown over here or internationally because there's a massive media blackout and there's censorship as well. And I think as well,
the police are being told not to investigate it either.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just because it costs resources.
Oh, well, of course it does. Yeah. It takes resources to investigate a murder or 2 or 3 or 20. But yeah, I think as well in terms of censorship, it's funny how, because it kind of goes back to the same thing with tolerance, tolerance and censorship. They seem to share the same kind of bracket in the sense of, you're free to say what you want. Yeah, there is freedom of speech, etc., etc.
As long
as it fits within a certain bracket. So you can say what you want, but it can't offend anybody. It can't infringe on anybody's rights, etc., etc. So you're given all these guidelines, but by having that stuff told, by being told that, by being saying you can say whatever you want as long as it adheres to these rules, that's not freedom of speech. Because you're still being told what you can and can't say, and that in essence negates freedom, a certain amount of freedom. Yeah. It's the same thing with...
I would say there's one thing that you can put limit on, and that's violence. If you're calling to violence,
no, obviously,
then,
I'm talking. Yeah. No, I'm absolutely. I'm talking about censorship in the sense of communication and what you're saying, what you feel, saying how you feel, what's going on with you, and talking about things that you might not agree with. Like when we had, it's fun. I can go off. Like when we've had a couple of votes here in the past while. I mean, one was the same-sex marriage votes and stuff like that. And so the idea is that if you don't agree with it, you're allowed to vote no. And the other hand, if you do agree with it, you're allowed to vote yes. But yet I still feel like there was a certain measure of censorship, but also / tolerance. Because on the one hand, you're told you have the choice to vote whichever way you want. And yet I feel that a lot of the people that wanted to vote no were made to feel as though
second class.
As though what they were doing is absolutely wrong. Ostracized to a certain degree. And I know people that have been ostracized by friends who have been told if you don't vote yes, we're not friends anymore. Which in essence is basically just saying don't vote no.
Yeah.
But they kind of swing it and put sort of a whole, diplomatic swing on it and go, oh, if you don't vote yes. Because they're too scared to sound negative and say, well, you mustn't vote no. And people go, well, what's the difference? There is no difference, but how you phrase things makes a massive difference to some people. But
you see that I agree with you. That's the starting place is from a communication perspective. You've already decided someone's wrong without having a conversation. Why are you voting
that sense,
no? Why are you voting yes?
You're censoring your friend.
Yeah.
That's a form of censorship because you're telling your friend, well, you can vote whatever you want, but it has to be yes.
It has to be what I say.
It has to be what I say it is. That's censorship. Censoring you, saying you can't vote that or you shouldn't be voting that.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And it's the same thing with tolerance. Like, we have to be tolerant. You have to be tolerant. No, we don't. You have to tolerate certain things. I mean, if you want to get extreme, it's like they're saying we have to be tolerant of certain things. And I'm like, well, so what if there are mass murders going on? Oh, you have to tolerate other people's points of view. Well, the person who's killing a bunch of people has the point of view that he wants to kill a bunch of people. Now, from a law point of view, yes, it's wrong.
But he's fulfilling his urges.
But he's going with what he believes and what he sees is the right thing to do. And so if we're going, people are going, well, again, with the vote that we had, if you're voting no, then you're intolerant of other people's lifestyles. And I'm like, well, no, yes, they might not you might not agree with that person's lifestyle, but you're still then allowed to vote, vote the way you want to vote because you have that freedom. And being told that you can't vote that way because you're infringing on someone else's rights, well, they're infringing on your rights to vote no.
Yeah.
If you can't infringe on their rights to vote yes, then they shouldn't be infringing on your rights to vote no. Now, I'm talking about this. I mean, this is just one example, but there's many other votes and there's many other elections and things that happen and stuff that people vote for. And
this in terms of like this way that intolerance gets in the way of, well, I say intolerance, I'm calling it what it is, but I mean people call it tolerance. Yeah. But this intolerance gets in the way of communication in terms of of discovering what the real issue is. Yeah. So let's say if we're talking about gay rights, okay, so the real issue is why were gay couples not getting the same tax benefits as married couples?
Okay.
For me, that was the real issue. So why, in terms of, but we were so scared to talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
That it became something else than what it actually was.
Literally just saying, well, we're just going to vote for it and see who says yes and who says no, and if the predominant amount says yes, then that's great. Then we don't have to talk about what's really going on. We can just put it through, and people can just do whatever they want. So essentially, the government didn't want to really deal with it because again, it means talking about stuff, and it means broaching the actual issue.
I wonder if, from a political perspective, they do that because they are trying to protect their own votes. Because if they actually talk about things,
they're politicians,
and then people will not vote for them.
When are they not trying to cover their own behinds?
Yeah,
they're thinking. We're thinking now. They're thinking 5 steps ahead in the sense of like, well, I might want to get re-elected or something like that. So I'm doing definitely half the votes that we do. If you look at the things that are happening, it's always like you look at South Africa now with we just had our general election, which was abysmal. But anyway, okay. It's like it was terrible.
I know.
Half the people didn't vote, and it was pathetic. I'm sorry. But it was all, most of the time when there's no general election or anything going on, the government just does what it wants, and just does and says and carries on as status quo and all everything's normal. But the minute there's an election, suddenly the promises start coming out the woodwork again. No, we need to build a better country. We need to do this, and all the catchphrases and the slogans and the cliches and start coming out thick and fast. Where were they before that? So it's absolutely politicians are there to cover their own butts, man.
Yeah.
I said that. I said butts on air. Does that mean I have to make it? We have to now
you
mark it as explicit.
Anyway.
We have to mark it as explicit.
No. It's comma B-U-T. No?
Comma
anyway.
B. Oh yes.
Yeah.
What?
There's no extra T.
Talking about cigarette butts, man. But yeah.
But I find sorry, there's something that came to mind which I think is very interesting.
Yeah, go for it.
If you're,
I want to take a sip of water.
Sure. If you're able to censor the public where they're too scared to communicate with each other about the way that they deal with things, it's a great way to cover what's going on in politics. It's a great way to not talk about it's just to stay in the shadows. If the guy's on the upper side,
it's misdirection.
It's misdirection. If you let people be so worried about communicating with each other
and not seeing what's
we
actually
can do
going
whatever
on.
we want in the background.
But that is.
I have no clue what's going on in Irish politics, in terms of.
But
in
is
general.
Is that because you just don't care, or is it because you just don't want to know?
No. What I mean is the discussion for politics is not out in the open. It's not an everyday thing. Do you know what I mean? You can't just go online necessarily, and it is a little bit there if you look for it.
Yeah,
what I mean is being readily accessible to educate the community and saying this is what we're doing. Yes, it's now because there's votes, there's something coming around, and people are posting posters.
I'd have to disagree a little bit there. I know. Fancy that, huh?
Wow. Sorry, I'm offended. I can't deal with this.
Well, I'm offended by your offense. I just, because lately the radio show that I do during the week is a drive time show that I do. And so often I'm covering the news. And I must admit there are quite a few councillors, like, sort of local councillors, that do come out and say, this needs to change, or the government now wants to do this, or they're saying this, and we don't agree with that. So I do find there are a fair amount of them coming out and saying certain things, making it public.
When did you notice this?
Well, just the last while since I've been doing. To be honest, but again, that comes down to reading the news and to reading the newspaper or whatever the case might be, listening to the news. But obviously, if I wasn't doing that, I wouldn't have been aware of it.
Okay. But the only reason that I'm asking when is because I know that there's an election going around this Friday. So I'm just saying, practically speaking, are they coming out of the woodworks?
Yeah, but that's a low. Well, you might have a point there, actually. I didn't think of that. Yeah, you might have a point, because it has been the last few weeks that these guys have suddenly been saying, this needs to be done, and the government's not doing enough of this, and so yeah. Do you know what? What we'll do is, when's the local election? Like Friday.
Friday, yeah.
So after that,
let's see if people are talking about it. Yeah,
I'll see how much of that pops up in the news feeds in the next few weeks, and see if that's the case. You've got a very good point there, actually. Look at that.
I could be wrong. I don't know. Maybe
you probably are, man. It's okay. We'll forgive you later. But you might have a point there. I didn't actually think of that. So what I'll do is I'll keep an eye on it and see.
Cool.
And see what happens in the next few weeks. If they start talking about skiing and ice hockey, and which we don't have any of that here, but anything but what they should be talking about, then we'll know pretty quickly. But I don't know, man. Like, to be honest, I don't know if it's that I don't have a lot to. Censorship for me, I don't really think about it much, because maybe it's because I just tend to say whatever I want, and so
it's not a thing, yeah,
which can be a problem. Well, so for me it isn't a thing, but of course I haven't ever, not lately anyway, not for a while, where I've had someone say, you can't say that. Although, I have had certain Very rarely have I had a situation where I've said something and someone's come to me and said, you can't say that, or what do you think you're doing, kind of thing. Very rare. But now that could also be based on the fact that maybe that other person doesn't want to start a fight, isn't confrontational, or just doesn't want to offend, doesn't want to come across as the a person who's offending. You know, always want to be innocent. You know, I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. Who knows? I'm sure if we do enough of these, at some point, someone will be like, what the heck? Speaking of which, if people do want to get a hold of us and stuff, we created our own little email address there. People can send comments to and stuff, which I'd love to get people to comment and
if we can get some ideas
and even ideas of things because it's the elephant in the room. So
what elephant's in your room?
Yeah, exactly. What elephant is in your room, and what circus did it come from? Although, I mean, they don't really use animals in circuses anymore, do they? I don't think so. Not so much.
Not really.
Anyway.
What's the
good old days. All right. So the email is what you think 2019. What you think 2019 at gmail.com. And so if anybody has any, if that's something they want to talk about, something that's been on their mind and they want to cover it, or they're like, this has been aching my brain for a while, and I just don't feel like I have the gumption to talk about it. But I'd love if you could talk about it. Then I'd be happy to. So what you think 2019 at gmail.com. We'll give you the email address at the end of the talk anyway, at the end of the show as well. Cool. And then guys can people can email us. I'll probably start getting hate mail and stuff, like, you suck. What are you doing? Why are you on air? I know.
Because Arnold's busy listening.
That was hectic, man. I was. Did you see that video clip that was going around about where Arnie got kicked?
No.
And of all places, it happened in South Africa.
Oh no.
He was in.
Was that recent? I saw a picture recently, but I didn't read it.
It was like the last week or so.
Okay.
It's been all over Twitter. And so I only ever saw the one video where you see his face, someone's filming him, and he's signing stuff and he's all smileys. This is at one of these sports gyms in Johannesburg.
Okay.
Of course, in Johannesburg. Joburg, where all the fun stuff happens.
Okay.
So Johannesburg, he went there, he was officiating or doing something about some sports event or something like that. And he was signing some stuff and he was chatting to people. And the next minute you see his face and then you don't see his face. Because it's just like you just see him get thrust forward. And then as he disappears out of frame, the security guard, this big security guard, I don't know, he just grabs his oak and gets him in a headlock. But of late, they've now posted a video from another angle. Because I was like, well, I thought someone just bumped him or something. So this guy literally did... I don't know if it's called a drop kick or a jump kick or whatever the case might be.
Okay.
But you see, like, he's signing something, and then the camera angle from the other side, you see it right from the back, so it's fine. This dude literally ran at him and jumped into the air and just, both feet into his back.
Wow.
And then, but the funny thing was this, so, which I thought was funny. He did that, right? He came running, he took a run up and he jumped at him and he kicked him with both legs, both feet, the whole deal, all of his weight into him. And he bounced off him like a pinata. And all that Arnie did was he kind of just like lunged, like he goes a bit forward.
Yeah.
You're like, he gets pushed a bit forward. And he's like, and you just see the security guy come out of nowhere and just tackle this like. But this guy bounced so far off him he barely moved. And I'm like, and it was, anyway, this guy. So I think he was probably someone dared him to do it or something like that. I don't know what the story was. But like even Arnie, when he tweeted, he's like, "Don't worry, everybody, I'm fine." He goes, "To be fairly honest, I didn't even know what was happening. I didn't even know someone was kicking me until I turned around and the guy's on the ground and the security guys got him, and he's like, oh, he jump kicked." So he really is the Terminator.
Wow,
because he's just like, it was just crazy, and he's not even that big. I mean, he's like 6 foot or something, which is not bad. But you always expect him to be bigger. But Ibn Etzebet, one of our rugby players, he stands next to him. He makes Arnold Schwarzenegger look like a midget.
Okay.
No jokes, man. It's just like you could be the Terminator. You could give Terminator a run for his money. But so censorship. You got anything else you want to talk about in that?
No, I guess
good,
just
I'm
from
done
a,
with it.
I was just going to say, just
No, I'm kidding.
from a historical perspective, when you're not
It's-
talking about things, it leads to horrible things. Like people end up
but
hurting
this is
each
the
other,
world, man.
and
This is how, and I know it's not an excuse. I'm not making an excuse for the world. I'm not saying, but this is how things are going, and it's just like, you know, LGBT rights.
Q. Sorry, you missed a Q and an A.
A Q and an A.
LGBTQAI.
What's QAI?
I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure that's
Are you
added
serious? There's more to it now.
on. Yeah, definitely.
Oh my word! I lost track of the first bunch of letters. Now they're adding more onto it.
It's updated like weekly, basically.
Oh my word! But I mean, you know, there's those rights that you can't assume someone's gender now. Like you can't. Don't call me a woman. Don't call me a guy. Like, I'm sorry. What am I supposed to call you? You know, it's just that kind of thing. Don't assume my gender, and you know, you can't say anything. And if you do, then you offend somebody. And it's like you can't.
Did you see that?
You
one
can't
video?
have an opinion. You just can't have an opinion anymore. And if you do have an opinion, then it's like, you know, you're wrong. Well, it's an opinion, which means I'm allowed to have it. So if you think it's wrong, that's great. That's your opinion. Your opinion is that my opinion is wrong. Awesome. There we go. You've got one. Just like my opinion might think that you're, I don't know, an idiot or something. Whatever I don't know. I'm just saying, you know.
Yeah.
Like, everybody is allowed to. I'm not saying that sometimes there are people out there that shouldn't be allowed to voice their or to say certain things. But I mean,
don't incite violence. Don't
incite.
people.
Yeah. So you can talk about stuff, but don't be all out. Like, you know, there is a certain amount of diplomacy in having an opinion as well. You're allowed to. You can have an opinion diplomatically. In the sense of, like, you can still have an opinion without actually being outwardly and forcefully derogatory. Some people are just doing that. Those kind of people I don't like. Those are the people who are going out there and saying, "Oh, you're a this," or calling people names and that kind of stuff.
Unhelpful conversation.
And just because they can, and then
people,
going, "Oh, well, it's my opinion. I'm allowed to say that." And I'm like, "No, you're just doing it because you're trying to get a reaction."
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff I don't
That's
agree
unhelpful,
with.
yeah.
If you have an opinion and it's a constructive opinion and it's something where you think it could make a difference or it needs to be spoken about or it needs to be said, then absolutely. But if you're just a kind of numpty who is going to come at you and say, well, I just want to say that because I want to upset some people and I just want to see what kind of reaction I get, then that's not constructive at all, and it is not helping. And that kind of stuff is what causes the sudden censorship. It was the same with corporal punishment back home and all around the world now. Now you can't spank your kids. Can't spank your kids because the law was brought in. It wasn't aimed at the normal parent who's doing normal parenting and who is trying to. It was against parents and people who were being abusive towards their kids, etc., etc. But here's newsflash for you. So they create this law. They enforce the law and they say you can't spank your kids because it's corporal punishment and you're abusing your kids or stuff like that. But that's great. So all the parents who are actually obeying the law and who do love their kids and want to look after their kids, they're now the ones that have got their hands behind their back because now it's like, oh, you got to go stand in a corner, have a timeout. But the people who were abusing their kids in the past are still abusing their kids.
Yeah.
Because they're not obeying the law in the first place. So why are they now going to obey another law that's come out? It's like, oh, another law for me to ignore. Do you know what I mean? It's just it's ridiculous. So this is what it is. So that law was brought out for that reason, but now it's gone completely crazy, and now you're not allowed to do anything with your kids. And I'm not saying beat your kids to a pulp. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying there was a measure of. I was spanked as a kid. You don't see me running around saying, I've got post-traumatic stress and all this kind of other stuff. But what I'm saying is that law was created for a specific reason. It then took on a whole different dimension and now is so crazy. And now it's the same thing with censorship. The censorship, and I mean, you can, don't quote me on this. By all means, email me and tell me that you think I'm wrong. I really don't mind. But I'm pretty sure the whole censorship thing was created to prevent inciting violence and people getting in other people's faces purely for the sake of it. Not because there was anything constructive behind it. And unfortunately, it's now taken on a wall of its own. And now it's gotten to this point where it's like you can't say anything about anybody to anybody at any time because you might offend somebody about something somewhere along the line. And that's like ridiculous, which is, again, like you said, this is now where the whole issue comes in. And people are like, well, you can't say this to anybody, and now I'm getting frustrated because I can't say anything about anything because I'm too scared.
Some racist person down the corner was trying to incite violence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
At least that's how I think it came about. I don't know. Anyway, what do I know? I just work here, so do you know what I mean? Anyway, so the other thing I was talking about censorship was like, made me think of Michael Jackson.
Woo! Sorry, I could
really. Shambo. That's how you want to do it.
Shambo.
Yeah, man. Anyway, whatever. But yeah, so because in that, carry on.
Okay.
In that, shall I kick you out now? No, I'm just kidding. No, but because in that sense, not only that, but just about music as well. There's censorship in certain music, in the sense of like, at least I think it's considered censorship. I don't know. Maybe I got the lines blurred there, but in the sense of, so remember there was that Christmas song. I don't know if you know. I really can't stay, but baby, it's cold outside.
Oh yeah.
Da da da. And so they classified it as like a date rape song. I mean, the song was written like 1940s or 1920s or something like that, like back in the day, when I very much doubt that date rape was a prevalent thing. Not to mention the fact that if you listen to the song, he says, "No, I really can't stay," and then he says, "Well, baby, it's cold outside," and then she goes, "Oh, maybe I'll stay for one drink," kind of thing. So there's not, by no means where she's saying, "Oh no, I can't stay. Please get me out of here. Help me. Someone call 911." Calling 911, nothing like that. And suddenly, and so the certain radio stations, I don't know about you, I certainly didn't take it off the air. I think I played it. And then more so when I found out that it was being banned. I was like, no, I'm definitely playing this song. But I just thought it was silly because you had some radio stations going, "Oh, well, we're taking it off the air because, this could be offensive to somebody. This is going to offend people out there." And yes, I mean, a date rape song, please, man. That was like in a time when life and your what's the word I'm looking for? Your frame of mind was in a very different place at that particular point in time.
Yeah,
and how they can take a song from that far back in the day and suddenly say, "Oh, but this is promoting date rape."
I have no clue. I don't know where it comes from. Do you know what? I kind of feel like it's a first world problem. Do you know where you kind of have people trying to find problems in something? But that's exactly it.
They're going to find it because, I mean, and this is where I'm coming from now. So censorship is gone out of control, or gotten out of control, in the sense of that. Same with Michael Jackson now, because now there was this court case that happened, and obviously these kids came out and who I don't think are kids anymore, but were saying, what happened at the house, or happened at this farm, or whatever his house was, Wonderland or whatever it's called. Saying, that they were abused and stuff. No, I don't know if they were or if they weren't. And I'm not saying that they're lying either. But now they go to a whole extreme with radio stations come and say, "Oh, well, we're not playing," since they came back and the court case was sort of definitive where these kids were, or these guys were, people were coming out and saying, "This is what happened to me." Now suddenly it's like, "Oh, well, we're not playing Michael Jackson's music anymore." Because of what's now transpired and the fact that all this truth has come out. But, I'm not saying that what he did was right, and I'm not saying that he did anything or he didn't do anything. I don't know if he did or if he didn't. I wasn't there. But it's music, for crying out loud. And if you're going to start going down the line of where, well, we can't play, and we're not playing this now because this is what he did, and we don't want to promote a person who did this kind of stuff, and that might offend somebody as well, it could be offensive to people out there, then where do you draw the line? Because there's so much other stuff out there that's music. Listen to rap songs. For the love of Pete, man. Yo, I got my money, I got my woman, I got my hoes. It's my money and my they're singing about
blah, blah, blah,
yeah, they're
blah,
singing about how they objectify women.
Yeah.
And so that's not offensive. But it's rap, and so we expect that. Is that the argument? Is that the justification for it?
I don't know. Because we're talking about Nirvana as well. I mean, anyway, we'll go
Nirvana?
There. Just some of the content of some of the songs.
Whatever. No, but I mean, okay, yeah, fine. But all I'm saying is, like, in cases of Nirvana, yes, if you listen to music there, obviously if you listen to a lot of the lyrics, yes, I get that one particular song, but I don't think that's what that meant. But either way, but if you listen to the lyrics, yes, you go into it and you start listening to a lot of lyrics of a lot of music, there is stuff there. I'm talking about the blatant stuff. So with Wacko Jacko is what that was coined the phrase. People used to call him that. If you, like, in his case, yes, okay, because he is possibly guilty of some offenses that he's done and stuff like that. Now you want to ban his music. It was still good music. It didn't come through in his music as far as I know. Maybe it did, and maybe we just didn't realize it. But it could be said about so many other things. There's certain, I mean, look at things like South Park and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know, is that even still on air?
I
have no idea. But I mean, that must have been offensive to somebody, because that was very blatant about the stuff it did. Yeah. No one censored that. No one complained about it, because there was a certain demographic that enjoyed it. So now we're not going to get rid of this because a certain demographic enjoy it, and so we're going to keep it on, and because it's making money.
The thing that is so just disingenuous about the whole Michael Jackson thing is they had to wait for him to die before they actually were to voice an opinion.
Absolutely, because he can't say anything.
If it was wrong before, why didn't you say something before he was gone?
Exactly. It's the same. It was on the thing with, when you have someone who is an actor or any famous person. So this person isn't famous yet. So they're coming up through the ranks. And then suddenly they're famous. And then people start coming out of the woodwork. Oh, this person did this to me. And suddenly lawsuits start happening. But they never happened before, because the person didn't have money before. And they didn't have leverage on the person before. They're like, oh, this person's famous. So now I'm going to come forward and say stuff because it's leverage. And there's money, and because I can make money out of this person now, so now I'm gonna throw out a lawsuit there, and half the time you don't even know if it's true or not.
Yeah,
because I've often heard of people being accused of stuff. I mean, I read some article about some teacher who was accused in school of a student accused him of raping her or molesting her. Okay, and then it turned out it wasn't true. She was lying. She admitted that she lied. And then it turned out the reason she said it was because she didn't like him. She said it was something about he was not aggressive, strict teacher, didn't get the grades that they wanted. I can't remember the exact reasons, but the point is they didn't like the teacher, so they made a false accusation. And the problem with that is, now how do you censor? Now that goes all over the news. There's no censorship there. That's on the news. And suddenly this guy is now known as someone who has molested kids in school.
When it wasn't him at all. You can't take it back. You can't take it back.
Because
people hear it and they think that it's,
Once it's out there, it's out there. And then they go, oh, well, it wasn't true. Oh, we'll print a retraction. Now, the retraction's fine, and you can go back and put it in that. You'll find it never goes to the headlines.
No,
it's where some small article. It's some small article somewhere in the newspaper that you won't notice unless you have a magnifying glass.
Yeah.
And then... But from now onwards, wherever that guy goes, whatever school he goes to, he goes, oh, what was this all about? Oh, I was accused of doing this. I'm innocent. Like, they found me not guilty.
Well, it's not worth the risk.
Oh, yes, but other parents, because parents then go, I don't want this guy in my school. I want this person teaching my kids. I was like, oh, but he was found not guilty. So, yeah, okay. I still don't feel right about it.
Did you hear about that other student as well? He got accused of raping this girl. And she said him and his friend were accused of it.
Yeah.
And she actually slept with both of them. And the reason that she said that they had raped her was because she was embarrassed that she was into some other guy, and she didn't want to tell them.
Oh, yeah?
She didn't want to give it away that she had done this. So it was better to accuse these people and maintain her own status, as it were, and make up this entire lie. And ruin these guys' lives. It got retracted as well.
But by that point it's too late.
Too late. He was kicked out of the college.
Yeah. But this is my thing. And then there again, I mean, in those cases, I do agree with censorship to a certain degree, where there are certain things that you shouldn't be put out there until you know the facts. But unfortunately, people just don't care about that because it's sensationalism and it's news.
Yeah.
Now, the same thing with
ratings.
It's ratings and it's all this kind of stuff. And this is why I'm going back to the thing with Michael Jackson or like rap music and stuff like that. Now, I like rap music. Don't get me wrong. Hip hop, whatever you want to call it. I do like it. Not all of it. Some of it, I prefer the older stuff. I do find the older stuff is a bit more about the issues and a bit more about the politics. And of course, than it is today. Today, it's all about, not all of it, but most of it is about money, drugs, sex, you name it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they sing about, like women, and women all go like, we want to be equal. We don't want to be objectified and stuff, which I'm with, and I agree with. Yet we have no problem taking Michael Jackson's music off the air because of something that he might or might not have done that he can't now prove because the guy's dead, so he can't defend himself. But we haven't got a problem taking that off because that might offend somebody. But we have no issue playing whatever rap artist, I'm not going to name names, is talking about how many women he's had, how many times he's had what he's had with them, and the things that he's done to them, and how much money he's making. That's okay. We can play that. There's no censorship needed there. I mean, that's not offending anybody. Like, I could care less. Doesn't offend me. I'm like, whatever, do what you want to do. If that's how you want to roll, if that's how you're going to make your money, that's your problem. I don't have to deal with it. But don't come and tell me that censorship is all about because I think they also try to hide it by saying, censorship is about protecting people. What a load of nonsense.
Yeah, people can turn the radio off.
Exactly.
They can turn the TV off. They can.
So
you've got a choice.
Exactly.
Or you can even talk about it. Talk about how you don't like it.
Exactly. There's your censorship right there. If you don't like what you hear, like if you don't like Michael Jackson because of what happened in the court case, turn it off. Don't listen to it. If you don't like what you're seeing on the TV, then don't flipping watch it. You know what I mean? As you say, exactly that. But yet we're like, I'm offended by we're going to censor all of this. And it's the same with that. And I think that would be the argument for hip-hop artists or rap artists to go, well, you can't censor us because if you do censor, we're not forcing people to listen to our music. They can turn it off. The same can be said for just about any other thing that we're being censored for. If someone is saying something to you that you don't like, walk away.
Yeah.
If you don't like someone on your Facebook page, someone's insulting you on Facebook or someone's trolling you or someone is like, sending abusive stuff on Facebook, take them off your Facebook page, like take them off your friendship circle, block them. There's multiple ways that you can get rid of people or get people out of your life. There's so many ways to do it now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So censorship, it does have its place. Absolutely. If you are, censorship in the sense of like if you're going to watch movies and stuff and they have to be certain, PG rated or whatever the case might be. Because obviously kids also want to go watch stuff.
Yeah.
I get that. That's totally fine. That's how it should be. So if you know it's like 10 years old, then fine, go watch it. If it's like 18, then that's the censorship board putting it up. They're putting a rating up there and they're telling you this is what censorship should be. It's warning you of what the content is.
Yeah.
But it's not telling you that you shouldn't or you can't. And if this offends you, you can complain about it. They're not saying that. The censorship board essentially should be them saying, we're just warning you, this content, this has got this content in, this is the age group that this is catering for, etc., etc., etc. But it's taken on a whole new meaning. Now it means something else. Now it's like literally controlling what you can and can't see and what you can and can't talk about. And people are like, I'm not being controlled. Not right now, you're not. But we're getting there.
It's very progressive and slowly.
Exactly. Anything. It's like, what do they say? You put a frog in a pot. If you crank up the heat, if you boil it straight away, the frog's going to jump out. But if you turn the heat up very slowly and very gradually, the thing eventually doesn't realize that it's getting hot. It doesn't realize that it's getting cooked. And before it realizes what's going on, it's already too late.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with what's going on in the world at the moment. Censorship and security. Oh my word, don't even get me started on security. We could talk about that actually next time. Security, cameras and all this stuff. We're doing it all for your security. It's also a way to keep track of people.
Yeah.
And make sure and see what you're doing. Now people are like, it's conspiracy theories. No, it's a fact. Go look it up.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with censorship. It started out as a guideline to help you and guide you in the sense of what helping you have an educated thought about or educate you in the sense of like what to expect. What am I going to get myself into? To now you will do this and you won't do that and you can watch this and you can't watch this and you can listen to that and you can't listen to this and that's going to offend people, so we need to do that to it. And that's all starting that way, and it seems to be beneficial to people now.
Well, it's not even beneficial now. Do you know, like
to a lot of people it is. To a lot of people it comes across that way. To a lot of people it does seem to be that way because a lot of people aren't as switched on as you like to think.
Okay.
People just kind of go on with their lives and they don't think about other stuff. They're like, yeah, I'm doing my thing.
Me, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it doesn't affect me. I'm not going to bother either. But 20 years from now, whole different ball game.
Well, I mean, if you think, okay, let's get very superficial for a second in that.
If we must.
Yeah. Even if you want to think of it just from an economic perspective, how it affects you from a financial side of things. Like I'm thinking of industries like the comedy industry. You won't.
That's true.
You won't be able to. Well, even now.
Well, that's not
certain things. You can't talk about things. You can't joke about things.
That's true.
It's the end of comedy.
Well, I was watching. It was a YouTube clip or was something I was watching on TV as well, and that actually came up. Comedians. They were saying comedians now. A couple of comedians are saying like, how do you deal with this? Because you can't hand out an indemnity form in the middle of a show or just before a show to have everybody sign this thing. And they said what's happening now is all the new comics that are coming out, well, not all of them, but a lot of them, are coming out and are stressing and are too scared to say things because
there's a lawsuit.
Because there's a lawsuit that follows. Yeah. And this is it. They said, comedy used to be the thing where you'd go up there and again, you would talk about the elephant in the room or what everybody's thinking about, but I'm not going to talk about. So now from a comedy point of view, people can be like, oh, well, totally listen to this because it's true. And they're laughing about it because it's true, because they can relate to it. They go, that's exactly how I feel. Or, yeah, that's so true. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Now, you have to be like careful. Now you can't say, and the fact you brought that up is exactly what's going on. It's exactly what's happening. I can't remember who it was, man. I got to go find that documentary, but they were saying, like Kevin Hartley, is it Kevin Hart or Kevin Hartley or whatever? Kevin Hart, yeah. All these guys and a couple other guys, like really well-known comics, are saying that. They're saying new comedy guys are coming out and they're coming to the older generation saying, what do we do? What do we say? How do we approach this? Because we don't know. We're too scared to say anything now because of a lawsuit.
Yeah.
And the guy said, he was like, how ridiculous are we going to get? Like, are we now, before we start the set, say, listen, before we start this, can you all please sign the indemnity forms that are on the table so that we can carry on? I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that's what it's come to.
Yeah.
And I'll bet you, had this been a few years back, people would have thought, that's stupid. That'll never happen. That'll never happen. Yeah. Come on, man. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Now we're here.
Yeah.
10 years from now? Forget 10 years from now. 2 years from now. Things are changing at such a rapid rate.
It's changing so quickly.
You can't even say, 10, 20 years from now. You can say 2 years from now, 2-3 years from now. How are things going to be? What are you going to say? I mean, what we're talking about now, who's to say that we might not be able to talk like this? We might get censored. Another iTunes censorship.
Do you know? And
they're gonna love me after this.
And then if you think about it from like a religious perspective, just very quickly, I think one of the pros and cons, but one of the things that's been very important is like Christianity's been challenged a lot lately.
And it's going to continue to be so. Yeah.
It has been for quite a while. And in a sense, I think that's good so that you've got educated Christians, that they're not just believing something for the sake of believing it. But
which is true. I mean, you should
be educated about what you believe.
Any decent pastor, any pastor worth his salt will be the first one to tell you, look, I'm talking about stuff up on the podium here, and I'm giving you the sermon, but please, by all means, go and read your Bible. Go and check out the verses that I'm talking about. Go and double check the stuff. Don't just take my word for it.
But I mean, if you don't have that element where you can challenge religion, Christianity, Islam, all the big ones, whatever, all the little ones, if you aren't able to challenge those things, then you'll have people believing stuff for the sake of believing it, and implementing, or either implementing religious dogma that's really just not meant to be there. Because they don't even know, you can't even talk about it. You can't challenge people's belief systems. You can't do any, and then you get extremists doing stupid things. And
absolutely. Anyway. And the thing is, along with that as well, you do get a very large portion of the population that are somewhat subdued. I'm trying to think of another word for it, but that won't put up a fuss.
Disillusioned.
Well, not disillusioned, just passive. There's another word for it, but. They're basically just rolling with the punches. You take like Japan, for instance. We were watching a documentary on Japan a little while ago, and we are gonna wrap up soon. But they were talking about Japan, watching a documentary on Japan about a week or two ago, maybe more than that now. And talking about how people in Japan are so, they don't they don't get anybody's faces. They don't. What was the thing? Oh, with the masks. So you know how you see a lot of Asian people or whatever, and in Japan, in case you see a lot of people walking out with masks on. Okay, it's not because. What would you think those masks are for?
I thought it was because it was the atmosphere.
Atmosphere and all that stuff. That's not what it is.
What is it?
And I never knew that. Like the guy was going around and he asked some people. He said, "What's the deal with the mask?" It's to cover their faces, to save them from ridicule. So if you don't know what someone looks like, you can't pass judgment on them. And so this is what's done. So people wear these masks so that when you're there, if you can't see the person's face, you can't pass judgment. You can't be like, oh, that person's pretty or that person's not pretty or whatever the case might be. And this is why they wear it.
Wow.
Same thing in the sense of like Japanese people won't get in your face about something. They'll be very diplomatic. They'll be very accommodating about everything. And the guy was like, they don't want conflict with people. Everybody just wants to get along. And so subservient. That's the word I was looking at, thinking about. So like a subservient culture. Now I'm not saying it's a whole of Japan. I'm sure there's some people out there who I'm just blanketing the entire Japanese people, but it's not just them. It's generally speaking, you find a lot of subservient people out there who just toe the letter of the law, who just follow obey the laws, and as you should. There are laws that you should obey, but I mean, even the Bible, it says obey the law, but if it is in direct contravention to God's law or to what God says, then it's a whole different story. But you're breeding, and I mean, if you look at the generations today, and you fall under that generation, but there we go. But I don't think you're quite there. But generations today, the millennial generations, like, they're all about social justice, and they say that, that they do like to rock the boat, but at the same time, they don't. It's kind of like their idea of making a difference in the world is social justice. That's it. And I could talk another hour or two about social justice right there. But the point is, you are getting more and more subservient people coming around who are just towing the line. Yes, they want change. Yes, they want change in the governments and politics and stuff like that. But there are certain things that they'll focus on, like the environment and so forth. So again, you were talking about earlier where people are being distracted. Politicians will do what they want as long as people are focused on something else. Like the environment, and I'm saying we shouldn't pay attention to the environment because we should. But the environment, social justice, all these little social justice things that all these people pay attention to. But they're looking at the smaller things, but they're not looking at the bigger picture because they're getting distracted by tons of other things. And not to mention social media.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
What's the latest petition you've signed? Oh,
exactly.
Well done. You did your job.
Oh, yeah, you signed a petition. Great. You just signed there. You made a difference in the world. Do you know what I mean? It's I don't know. I don't even know how we got onto that.
Yeah, it's okay.
My brain, I'm kicking into gear, an whole different gear now. But listen, we got to get out of here. Right.
I enjoyed myself.
Good. I'm glad you did because I didn't.
No. Sorry, man. No. Bad Company.
Totally bored. That's a good band.
What Bad Company?
No. Yeah, I think it's a name of a band or name of a song. Actually, I think it's the name of a song. But anyway, yeah, we're out of here. So as always, you guys, if there's anything you want to comment on, or if there's something you want to hear, or you just want to give us some feedback on the shows, because we appreciate the feedback. Obviously, It helps us improve the show. Then you can email us.
Yeah, if you want to hear more of Anthony's Australian accent as well, let us know.
If you want to hear my Australian accent, it's not quite strong right now. But give me a couple of Foster's beers. No, I'm just kidding. And I'm not advertising the beer. Just by the way, I've never had it. I don't know what it tastes like, and I don't care.
We're not sponsored by anyone.
We're not sponsored by anyone. We're sponsored by me. What?
Me and you.
Me, myself, and I. Me, myself, and I. Me, myself, and me, or something. I don't know. But anyway, if you want to send us comments, or you want to give us comments on the show, or maybe there's something you want to talk about, like I really want to hear about this, or hey, talk about this, whatever the case might be, you can email us at whatyoutthink2019. So what you think 2019 at gmail.com. Exactly, it's spelled exactly like it said. What you think 2019 at gmail.com. Send us an email on there. I look forward to getting your emails actually, and let us know what you think. And that's it. Thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah, if you want to send hate mail, that'll be great as well.
You know what?
Give us one.
I have no issue with that. Like if you look, I'm opening it up to getting opinions. Okay, I have no disillusion about the fact or no illusion of the fact that somebody out there is not going to like what we're saying. So you know what? And you're entitled to that.
Let us know.
Because freedom of speech, opinion, you're allowed to have your opinion. You know, might not be right. And might not be mine. No. But seriously though, that's what we're looking for. So obviously I'm not expecting you to be all out gratuitous and horrible. Like obviously have a bit of diplomacy. But just what you think. 2019@gmail.com and let us know what you think. That's exactly why I called it that. I think it kind of rolls off the tongue, don't you think?
Yeah.
Let
us know about your elephants.
So that's it. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again soon. Cheers, little T. It's been real.
Cheers, Mr. B. Thank you.
Cheers, man.
See you around.
Adios.